Hey there, welcome back. Now in this lecture, we are going to utilize our current user rate throttle class and then define different scope for different viewpoints. So currently these are known as our scope. So scope anon has a restriction of 5 requests per day. Scope user currently have a restriction of 10 requests per day. So let us create different scope and then restrict our classes. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to call this as throttling. Now here I have to import all the required files. So that means I have to import this user rate throttle. That means I'm adding restriction only for logged in user, because these things cannot be done by logged out user or some anonymous user like creating a review. Here I have imported my user rate throttle. Now what I have to do is I have to create a class. Let me call it as review create throttle. That would be much easier for us to identify. Review create throttle. And then I'm going to import my user rate throttle. Inside this I have to define a scope. So I'm going to define review create. Once that is done, let me also create a new throttle class. And this time I'm going to create a throttle class for review list. That's it. Now we just need to define restriction for number of requests per day or per month, per year, whatever we want. I have to just define the restriction for my scope. Let me copy this one, get here, and I just need to define scope restriction. So review create, let's do it for 1 per day. Don't forget to add commas. And then the second one is review list. Let's do this for 10 per day. Let me save this one, and now we are not using this. I'm not sure, maybe we are using somewhere. So this restriction is done. Now all I have to do is import my review create throttle class as well as review list throttle class. Let me jump here, and this is going to be from our watch list app API, and then we have throttling. I just need to import instead of user rate throttle, this is going to be review create as well as review list. That's done. So our import is done. Now I just need to mention my throttling class. So this is going to be the throttle class for review create. This looks fine. Now I need to mention a throttle class for review list. So this is going to be review list throttle. Now remember, I have mentioned anon rate, which is going to be 5 per day. Now list is 10 per day and review create is 1 per day. Let us test this out. So what I am going to do is, let me check if I have a review or not. So refresh this one. I already have review for the boy. And I need to review ID number 7. Let me jump here, and this is going to be the movie. And here I am going to send a create request. I need to send a post request, and let me copy this description. That means my JSON entry, get into body, and call this raw data JSON. I don't need to send ID here. Only I need to send rating as well as description active. So 5-star, good movie, throttle. So I just remember about this, and let me set this as false. Now I am only allowed to send one request, and again I forgot the movie number, which was 7. Yeah, that's fine. So let me jump back to my postman, and if I try to send a request, you can see we have created a review. Let me jump on to our review part. We have created a review. Now let me create a review inside for this 8, which is going to be my ID 8. Now here let me create 8, and throttle 2. Now if I try to send a request, this is post request again. You can see request was throttled, expected available in this is amount of second. So that's how we can restrict user one request per 24 hour. This is great. This works very well. There are chances that you can use 2 requests per day. That's work well because you might have some time issue according to your country zone. But I guess this 2 per day will work well. And let us try to use this review list. So here I have a movie list, which is movie 5. Let me get back here and access this 5/reviews. So I'm going to send throttle request and I'm going to check this review list throttle. Send a request, get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's done. So we have tested this part also. Now the next one is scope rate throttle. We can do something similar for our individual class. Instead of doing this, instead of creating a new file, we can do something here directly. So maybe if I want to define a throttle class here itself, and then I can define my throttle scope here, and then the count for throttle scope. Okay, this might sound confusing, but let me do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import my scope rate throttle. Let me jump here and import it at the top. This is going to be imported from my throttling class of Rest Framework. So now if I scroll down a bit, here we have review detail. So that means I need to access for individual element. So let me use this scope rate throttle. Now here I need to mention throttle underscore scope, and I need to give it a name like previously we did here. I need to do something similar. So here I'm giving it a name as review detail, and then I can mention the scope for this particular specific throttle scope. Let me get back here, and here let me add restriction. So maybe for review specific review detail, let me try for 2 per day. That should work fine. Now remember the main point here. We are adding restriction according to this now. This is review detail, which is our scope, and review detail, that means I need to access individual element. So let me jump back here and send a request 1, 2, and I got an error. Now we have tested all 3, which is understanding of how to use these requests directly, then create our own throttle class, which is review create throttle, and then using scope rate throttle. Best thing about scope rate throttle is you can directly import them and then mention your own requirement. So this works well when you have specific requirement only for 1 or 2 field. Now you can do one good thing about scope rate throttle. You can combine multiple of them. So you have this, and maybe you have another class that is related to this review. So maybe we can do like this. Now the requests of both of them will be counted together with this review detail throttle. So that means for review list and detail, we set a review detail throttle as 10 or 2 per day. So they will be combined together. I don't need to go more in depth with throttling. It's a specific condition that most of the users, most of the startup or most of the project don't require. You only restrict them when you are selling an API. Most of the time API is not sold or API is not connected. It's used to connect different own application. So maybe you are connecting with your own mobile application, your own website, own desktop application. So you are not going to restrict your mobile, or that means your own Android app or your own iOS app, to send 10 requests per day or 100 or 1000, whatever the number is. But you don't restrict your own application. These requests works well when you have specific kind of restriction for users. So like blogs, and like if you are giving free API, or maybe you want to get registration from user that you can read 5 movie reviews per day, and after that you have to register, and on registration you can add 100 limit per day. The next thing is you can use multiple throttle class together. So that means a good example is you can send one request per minute or one request per second, but you can send maybe 1000 requests per day. So maximum limit is 1000. The maximum limit for second is 1. So in 1 minute they can send 60 requests only. In total in one day they can send maximum of 1000. So these are the limit and combination that you can set. That's all for this lecture. I hope you got the idea to add restriction according to request numbers. And make sure you jump onto the documentation part. This is going to help you a lot. Thank you for following, and I will see you guys in the next one.